I'm joined now by someone who has resigned from his position at the Washington Post in response to that decision. Robert Kagan is a senior fellow of foreign policy at the Brookings Institution. He's a former editor-at-large at the Washington Post. He's the author of the book Rebellion: How Anti-Liberalism is Tearing America Apart Again. Robert, it's great to have you here. Thank you. I just want to warn you, we're monitoring Kamala Harris's movements in Philadelphia, so I may just need to dip in if she starts talking to reporters for a moment, but this is a really important conversation. And you heard the conversation I just had with Marty Baron. That it is a bit of a betrayal. I mean, and as Jonathan Capehart said, the Washington Post really leaned into the idea that democracy dies in darkness, kind of dies in silence, too.
Yes, and, we can have a discussion about what, whether newspapers should endorse or not endorse. It's an interesting conversation. But I think what the really important thing to see here is this is how American institutions fail to protect us. The Washington Post is one of those institutions. It represents the free press in this country. And we are seeing now, I think, a preview of coming attractions of what things are going to be like in a Donald Trump presidency. The bullying of the media and the acquiescence of the media to Donald Trump's wishes. This was a preemptive capitulation on the part of Jeff Bezos for purely business reasons. I think it's very clear what his motives were.
What part that's interesting to me is that as journalists, we are subject to threats and accusations, and people, don't like us, whatever the case is, but we sign up for it. We decide we're in this fight. The message this sends to readers and to people out there is that when the institution, when the Fourth Estate starts to crumble, we've already seen elements of government crumble. We've already seen parts of the court succumb to Donald Trump and his bullying tactics. They kind of need to believe that the press is fine with being called the enemy of the people and is fine with the criticism and doesn't need to cut deals with somebody who might be the president of the United States.
Right. And clearly we're seeing how that need not be true. I mean, when we have, fabulously powerful corporate entities in charge of news organizations, we can anticipate, and we're seeing it right here, that those corporate entities will choose their profits and their effort to keep their businesses from being attacked by someone like Donald Trump. They will place that over the priority of fulfilling the mission that an institution like the Washington Post has in this country.
Now, one of the interesting things about you in particular, you identify as a conservative, you have been very critical of Donald Trump. Those things are not mutually exclusive at all. Judge Luttig was on my show yesterday. He continues to identify as a conservative. Lots of people do, but they see the fascism. You wrote about this a long time ago, before it was acceptable for people to even say that word. There are many people who 3 months ago would have said, your hair's on fire. Why are you talking about fascism? He's not a fascist. He's just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. You identified this streak a long time ago. It's only borne fruit since then, that he now says all the things out loud that he's going to do. There's no reason to disbelieve that Donald Trump is going to bring authoritarianism and fascism to this government.
No, and the key thing about, I don't throw that word around loosely. It's a very specific term, but it is the malady that democracies in particular face. And what we're seeing, it isn't only so much what Donald Trump does, it's what his followers do. I think it's pretty clear that Donald Trump believes that his followers want to hear that he will be dictator for a day or that he will rule in an authoritarian fashion, because the more he talks about it, the more enthusiasm he seems to have on his side. So we have to face the reality that a significant chunk of the American public is in a way weary or disgruntled with democracy, not just with the Democratic Party, and are willing to see a strong man take power. This means that America is not as unusual as we think. This is happened in other countries.
All right. There's a good thought there with Robert Kagan. I can't get the end of it, but I will get it, and I will tell you what it is. Robert Kagan is the former editor-at-large now, because he has resigned from the Post with the Washington Post.